Is it on? I think that's everyone. Everyone in, sat down. Brilliant. Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome to the GDG. Wonderful to see you all again. So, I forgot my clicker. I knew I was going to turn it off. There we go. Start again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GDG. So, for those of you who don't know, most of you do by now, but we're a community of passionate game developers who get together once a month to meet, learn, collaborate, and just be the awesome, wonderful people that you all are. We've got Say Hello on there as well, as I like to say. It's all about getting in, saying hello to people that you don't know, being the awesome, welcoming community of game devs that we all are. So yeah, if you see people sort of in the bar that you don't know, walk up, say hello, introduce yourself, just have an awesome night. So as always, I'd like to start these by saying massive thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to everyone who's watching on the stream. And thank you to all of our incredible speakers, past, present, future. I always say this, but without the people who give their time very generously to the game dev group, it wouldn't be what it is. So thank you all. Thank you as well to everyone who helps out behind the scenes. So we've got Luke, who's in the audience, has been instrumental in putting together the boot camps and helping out behind the scenes as my business partner. We've got Dee Dee, who unfortunately isn't here tonight, but usually she's running around taking incredible photos, making us all look really good, and also is now helping out on social media. So hopefully you'll see a bit more sort of activity online from us. Anthony, who is over in the corner, doing some incredible work on the stream and making us sound good, and also has done some awesome work on giving us like an intro and like a jingle and stuff. So if you get a chance to look at the VOD, then have a look at his awesome work on that, because it's really cool. And Scott as well. So Scott has been very, very helpful, I would say instrumental as well, in setting up the game jams. Scott, thank you. And also the Discord. So thank you, Scott. Thank you to everyone who came to Bring Your Own Games that we had, I want to say, a month ago. We had people coming along, bringing their own games that they were working on, showing them off to the community. And so thank you to everyone who did that, and thank you to everyone who sort of played the games, gave feedback, and just got involved. It was a really, really cool night, and we'll be running a few of those throughout the year, so looking forward to doing that again. I think the next one is in June. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's in June. So yeah, thank you to everyone who came along. Thank you to our incredible partners as well. So 1 Mill Street, obviously, give us this incredible space to be. They're a wonderful team, are very helpful people. So they do co-working and office space. So if any of you are interested in any of that, have a chat to the team. Very friendly, very approachable, and we'll be more than happy to help out. So a couple of community updates. We obviously have the 16-week funded boot camps coming up, which we are all incredibly excited about. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to kick those off. So they are kicking off very soon, 8th of April. The applications are closing on the 31st of March. So if you haven't yet, and you want to be involved in the boot camps as a kind of aspirant game dev, getting your foot in the door of the industry, come and have a chat to me afterwards, and I'll point you in the direction of the link to sign up for those. But yeah, getting quick because they are closing soon. And our first game jam. So this is on the 6th and 7th of April. This is something that people have been kind of asking about for the last year and a half, and I've been going, yeah, we're going to do one. We're going to do one. And we're finally doing one. So in 2 weeks, because I like to do everything at the last minute. So yeah, 6th and 7th of April. If you've got a free weekend, come along, join a team, make a game. I can't wait to play them. All of the communication, everything for that is going to be on Discord. So there's some channels on there to find a team and join in. But also, if you scan that code, it'll just take you to the Discord, and you can be there and share your work as well. So if you are working on a game, if you've got some art that you want to share or some music that you're working on, post it up and share your work. And if you're up for it, we can share it online and hopefully boost some people up and get some eyeballs on your work. And also get some feedback as well from the community if you want it. As I said, Dee Dee, unfortunately, isn't here tonight, so we're down a photographer. There are a couple of awesome photographers running around, Angelo and Raj, who have stepped up and are taking photos, so thank you both. But if anyone else wants to snap some pictures, then please feel free, post them online. hashtag the GDG. Dee did say that there's a prize up for grabs for her favorite photo. I have no idea what that prize is, but I'm sure it's lovely. I might have to buy it, so I don't know, but she'll tell me what it is. Post them up, hashtag the GDG, and Dee will judge them. That's enough from me. We're here for Phil. So Phil Foxton, who's the founder of Fox Chicken Grain, is going to be talking to us about DevOps. Looking forward to it. So big welcoming round of applause for Phil, please.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. I've got too many things in the hands right now. Just one sec. Put that in there. Right. Talk amongst yourselves for a sec. Last time I did one of these, I stood in a room and I looked around and I thought, I know 90% of the people in the room. So it was actually really easy. This time, I think it's more like, I know, maybe 9%. But I've been assured that you're all really nice people. So please don't prove Nathaniel wrong. Okay, so I'm Phil Foxton. I am, if we go to next one, okay, I've had 30 odd years. Just, can you tell I've really not practiced this one? Okay, you want to see this logo a lot. As Nathaniel said, I run a consultancy called Fox Chicken Grain, and there is a reason behind the name, which is logic puzzles and the fact that my surname's Foxton. Okay, so I've got 30 years working in various different industries. I built DevOps teams for the likes of Atom Bank, Focusrite and Every, and by this point I shouldn't have to look at notes. I should be able to tell you after 30 years what I've done, but I'm sorry, it's old age catching up with me. I spent 2 years at Radical Forge, ending up as their head of operations, and while there I implemented a whole load of DevOps processes and actually brought in one of my best mates as their automation engineer, which worked well. But now, actually, we'll come back to the but in a minute. Now I support studios of between 2 and 10 people in size, available for one-off retainer and regular days work. By operational support, that's HR, IT, planning, finance, all the really boring stuff that when you're making a game you don't want to think about. All you want to do is do the art or write the code. I'm the person that does all the boring stuff. But you'd find it boring, I find it fascinating. Okay, so, okay, Phil. Remind me, what is DevOps? All right? A lot of people go, well, DevOps, it's just development and operation mushed together, isn't it? No, it's not. What you can't quite see here, because of my fantastic elite PowerPoint skills, is the infinity loop, which goes around here, which explains DevOps nicely, because it's around planning, deploy, release, monitor, plan, and keep going round and round and round and round. The trouble is with it, it requires ownership. Typically, you'd have multiple teams working in a company, and each team would own a feature. So within a game, that might be one team would own all of UI. Another team may own all of the combat. Another team may just do all the environment art and never do anything else. That is kind of difficult for most established games companies to get their head around. Okay, automation's a part of it. It is a part of it. We've all worked in places, and probably do now, where they have a Team City server to build your code once you've deployed it, or once you've checked it in. That's not doing. Just having a Team City server is not doing DevOps. It's part of it, but it's not actually the thing. Okay. From my experience, very few game studios actually do DevOps. The trick to get your head round. Reason being, they don't understand it. They don't understand the value proposition of it. What does it? It's a little bit like operations in a game studio, and this is not me being bitter. This is just as a fact. Game studios don't understand the value that the operations department brings to the studio. They don't understand the value that DevOps brings to the studio. And so they'll just go, well, it's only a cost. Why should we do it? There's also a thought that DevOps now is outdated and that we should be going to SRE. But that's outside of what I'm doing now because, well, this talk, because we could be here for, you got a couple of weeks? No? Okay, we're not doing that then. Okay, so games is not unique in not understanding the value, okay? It's much wider spread. I've worked, as I mentioned earlier, I've worked across multiple different industries, finance, military, government, you name it, and I have interesting stories about all of them. But one common thing about them is the industries or the companies that actually understand the value of DevOps are the companies that can leverage it and operate in a way that is fast and agile. Because to operate DevOps, you need to also understand how you can work in an agile manner. And this, I think, is what breaks a lot of games companies. Quick show of hands, how many work in games companies of greater than 20 people? Okay, all right. Of those, is the team of more than 20 people, do they all work on one game? They all work on one game? No? Do you have teams of greater than 8 people working on one particular thing? Yeah? Yeah. You can't work agile with more than 8 people. It is impossible. Right? Because you get to that size, there is no way that you can actually manage the work and ensure that the issues that arise are managed within a sprint. You just cannot do it. So believe me, I've tried. I've got up to 28 people and watched it all fall apart before now. Okay. So another reason why DevOps is not used is that automation is used really, really heavily within DevOps for building infrastructure, for testing, and actually automation of the testing of a video game is really, really difficult. It's not impossible. There's tools such as Eggplant, which will allow you to press the screen at a certain point or simulate the press for screen at certain points. There's also some interesting other ways that you can do it. I've seen one QA company actually use Lego to simulate the presses on a screen, which was fun to watch, not particularly practical when you had to do it 100 times over. But doing that is really, really difficult, and understanding how to do that is really, really difficult. So what happens is you just go, well, actually, you know what, we'll just hire another QA. QAs are, we can pay them minimum wage. We can get rid of them when we don't need them. They are the, and this is, I hope I'm not upsetting anybody in the room, but QAs by some companies are treated as cannon fodder. They just, in you come, oh yeah, we don't need you now, off you go. And people just, I'll get off this subject because it's something that I could spend, another subject I could spend hours on, all right? The automation is also needed for part of the build process. If you have a multiplayer game, you have a live service game, then you need to be automating that build. What happens when, who remembers Lost Ark when it was released? Anybody remember what happened when Lost Ark released? Yeah, I'll just... Nobody? Right, bear in mind, Lost Ark was released in the West by Amazon Games, and their whole infrastructure was on AWS, cloud infrastructure owned by Amazon. All right? They released it, they completely dropped the ball with it and didn't do any kind of automation, any kind of scaling up, any kind of DevOps on it. So they released it, and they had something like 100 times the number of people want to play it than they expected. And within 3 days, they had to take all the servers down to manually build. Now, if they'd have operated in a DevOps manner, if they'd have operated with some kind of automation, they'd have been able to scale that out. They'd have planned this already. So they do now. I know somebody who actually works on that project and is like, yeah, we took a lot of learnings from that, and it scales up, scales down, okay? And the last thing that why companies don't do it is fix forward is generally not an accepted method. And by fix forward, that's like, instead of rolling a piece of code out, finding it's buggy, so you roll back and go and fix it, with fix forward, you roll it out, you go, right, okay, that code's there. We're going to fix it in place. We're not going to actually. And that is generally not accepted unless you're Microsoft. Okay. Okay. So what can, on a broader scale, there's things that DevOps can teach game dev. Okay. A lot of things, and it's not just about automation. There's a lot of that in there. All right. And it's end-to-end responsibility is the first one. What I'm finding working for, I've worked across for multiple studios, from 2-man straight out of university right up to AAA studios, right? And they all have the same thing. It's very siloed. Bust those silos. Have people accept that if they're working on this, let's just say there's a billboard, you're working on COD and there's a billboard in there, you accept that you're taking responsibility from the start of that to the end of that to when it goes live, right? Not going, oh, I've done my bit, I've drawn it, now it's their problem. It's not. It's your problem all the way through, and that includes getting the phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay? As devs, as people working in the games industry, we need to value more we need to understand the value of trusting in testing. I have QAs, and pretty much, I don't think I've come across a studio yet, barring the very, very early startups, that don't have any kind of even basic QA unit testing in place. Yeah? But that needs to be much bigger. You need to be testing. All right? And the next one's actually quite an interesting one, and one that, unless you've worked maybe outside of games in an agile environment, you maybe don't understand. But I'll cover this quickly. All right, okay. In an agile environment, in a sprint, you have a team of people together, and you might have in that team, outside of the sprint, you might have a technical artist, you might have a C# dev, you might have a QA person, and a few other people. Right? When you're in the sprint, there is no other role. There is no role other than developer. And what that means is, if something needs doing, you do it. You don't go, well, I can't do it because he's the person that does that. Everybody accepts all responsibilities. Everybody accepts all responsibilities for what's going on. And the last one is, right, you cannot, short word, egos, right? We've all come across this. But if you're operating a DevOps team, you cannot operate a DevOps team with egos. Everybody has to check their egos at the door and just get on and do the work. You're working towards a common cause. And this I don't see. I honestly do not see. There is too many rock stars, superstars, and it causes too many problems. Is it the right way to go? Probably. Probably, because you gain automation, you gain speed, you gain chance to actually people own things from end to end. Right, okay. How do I do this? Right, okay. First of all, you need to work out what problem you're trying to solve. So many times I've seen DevOps projects start and fail because nobody understands what they're trying to solve. Right? If you're a game studio, it might be like, well, we don't want the embarrassment of a Lost Ark launch. We don't want, and then there's one last weekend. So I can't remember what. There was one just last weekend that launched, and they'd only built 3 servers, and they realised that they needed 100, and they were just like, we can't. We're going to have to take it offline and build more servers. Well, if they'd have sat down and thought about it, they'd have gone, well, actually, you know what? Maybe we should build 100, or work out how we do it in an automated manner, so that we're not actually sat here and going, sorry guys, because you only get, when you launch a game, the truism is you've only got one chance to make a first impression. So you can't actually go back and go, hang on guys, just give me another chance. I've got this, all right? Once you've worked it out, your answer is probably DevOps, all right, okay? It's a catch-all, and it takes a much longer conversation about what DevOps actually means in practicality. But as in, how do we do this? Where do we check in? Do we use Perforce? Do we use GitLab? The actual technical thing. How do we build the infrastructure? Are we going to use Ansible? Are we going to use Terraform? Is it going to be AWS? Is it going to be GCP? All these are variables that come into it. All right, okay. A couple of great books. If you want to, there's a great book that has absolutely nothing to do with tech, but tells you everything you need to know about DevOps, which is called The Phoenix Principle. All right, okay. And it's written by a guy called Gene Kim and a couple of others. Gene Kim's acknowledged as the guy to go to for DevOps. And it's a story. It takes you through the story, and it illustrates what happens if you have things like single points of failure, if you don't do automation, if you build things too quickly or too slowly. So it gives you all the principles. That is, in a nutshell, how you can do it. And then why should you? In the end, you should end up, if you can see behind, then you've got automation, you've got structure. That's a really bad one, and that's accessibility fail on my part, I'm afraid. Speed and cost, right? Yeah, thank you. Your eyesight's better than mine. If you get all of them, your Venn diagram ends up, you're sat right in the middle of it. Chances are you'll end up over here or up there, right? And you'll move around, and as time goes on, you'll move from one side to the other, up, down, here, there, and everywhere. But you'll get to a point where it works. Okay. One thing I've missed from all of this, and I knew I should have put this in, and I had it as a note on when I was creating these, is as a lead, if you're tasked with creating a DevOps team, the one thing that you have to have above all of this is trust. You need to trust not just the team, but the people that are leading that team. Because if you don't, you're going to end up in a whole world of pain. So that was a very, very quick tour. I said about 20 minutes, didn't I? It's not far off. Not far off. Hopefully it's brought you you've given you some background on where you should be. going to ask questions now, aren't you? You're going to. At this point, I'm going, oh, that's time. I need to. No. But if I'm around for the rest of the evening, there is.
So there's time for questions. There's time for questions. So if anyone's got a question for Phil, first of all, if we give him a big round of applause for Phil.
I should have worn sunglasses.
So I'll just run between then, if that's all right. Take the microphone. So sorry, I saw some hands go up.
Hi, sorry. Thank you very much for the talk. I'm a complete newbie, so it might be a really stupid question. But you were mentioning that example about opening a game and only having free servers, and that DevOps is like the answer to that. Can you explain to like someone who's got not the experience how DevOps would stop that from happening?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that question. And just to the first point, there is no such thing as a stupid question. There's completely insane answers, which is what you'll probably get from me, but there's never any stupid question. What it means in that situation, there was, I think you mentioned, or so when I was saying about it, you got which game it was, did you not?
Star Wars Battlefront.
Was it? Yeah. Okay. Star. Right. Lost Ark did the same thing. Right. Okay. What you would normally do is your planning would be, as part of your build, you would automate the build of the infrastructure and how that scales out, either horizontally or vertically, so to cope with load. Right? And so when you're hit suddenly with 10,000 players and you're only expecting 10, right? Yes, while the new infrastructure spins up, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, but there's not as much as they're going to sit there with a little spinny going round and going, well, 3 days and 22 hours maybe before you can join, you know, which is, that number's in my mind because that's what I got when I was trying to play Diablo 4. But that's a completely other story, okay? So does that answer your question? Okay, no problem. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Scott.
Is that working?
I'm just curious. So you said trust in the system. And maybe I can see how, I don't know, a producer that knows nothing about DevOps might trust the magicians in DevOps to scale up the servers and scale down the servers, whatever you need. But how do the magicians that are in DevOps, how do they trust what they have built over the course of like 3 years developing a game? How do they trust the system?
Sorry, I'll just grab this because the answer is the value of trusting in testing, right? It comes back to the value of QA in games is, I touched on it slightly, it's down here, right? We've all heard the stories of, and this is actually, I've heard this repeated verbatim by a tutor at a university, right? You want to get into games, go and do QA, and then you can move sideways. No, right? That is insulting in two ways, right? One, it's insulting to QA because QA in games is a whole career path, right? And it's insulting to everybody else because that's going, well, all you have to do is you can come in as a QA and then just go, well, I've worked in games for 6 months now, I can now become a technical artist, right? It doesn't work like that, you know. So trust in the people that are doing the testing, automate the testing, trust in your own tests, and that is how you then, as the wizard that is doing the DevOps things, you have trust in what you're building because you can go. That's it. And this is where the whole other conversation about SRE comes into it, which is site reliability engineering, which you look at it, you're preempting what's going to happen. And that's a whole other 3-day course from Google and a thick book like that. Okay. Does that answer?
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Any other questions?
From your experience, how many gaming companies that you've come across have had DevOps, like as a percentage, have got a DevOps team?
Right, okay. That is a really, really interesting question. And I think I maybe mentioned it to whoever I was talking to earlier tonight. All right? You need to split it by layers of game studios. All right? AAA, let's start right at the top. The ones that you would expect to have DevOps teams and be like, yeah, we've got this, we know what we're doing. All right? Pretty much zero. No DevOps. All right? They're the ones with the cannon fodder. Right? We need somebody to automate this. No, we won't bother. We'll just bring somebody else in from outside. Okay. So AAA. AA downwards, it's further to a point, you get more and more people in it. It depends upon who is the CTO as well. You've got a really tech-savvy CTO who understands cloud computing, understands how the impact of automating everything, then you've got a bigger chance of having DevOps within the infrastructure. If you've got a more traditional CTO who is like, right, okay, well, we do this and we then burn it to a CD and we put it in a cardboard box with a thick manual and then send it off to GameStop, chances are you've got none. Chances are you've got none. And then you get down to your startups, you guys straight out of university, and most of the time they have not got any because they're focusing on, I just want to make the game. I just want to make the game, which comes back to the bit that I do, which is the boring bit. You know, I am a DevOps engineer. Part of that 30 years has been building all of that. But generally, it's difficult to find. I know you do some, don't you, Scott? We were talking about it earlier. But do you find other studios you talk to have got some idea, or it varies? Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question as well.
Okay, absolutely.
DevOps in the software world is really mature now. People have been using DevOps as software teams, like you say, agile teams, quite a lot. If I said I would like to bring a DevOps team into the gaming world, like, how are you going to sell that? Look, so the biggest thing, I guess, is that it's going to go down to cost.
Yeah, it's actually, it's interesting, across all the industries I've worked in, the one that got DevOps the most, right, is fintech, right? And what drives financial companies? Money. It sounds obvious, but it is. It all comes down to money. Okay, you look at some of the biggest challenger banks out there, which are Revolut, Starling, Atom Bank. Yeah? They all rely heavily upon DevOps processes. All right? So that should tell you, that hopefully answers your question. It is all about cost. You know, you can, it's cost and speed, going back to this one here, cost, automation and speed. All right? A great story that I use a lot to illustrate how good a DevOps team can be and how useful it can be. All right? I was working with a team at Atom Bank in Durham, and we discovered an issue on one of the environments. Right? And I turned to one of my leads and I said, how long will it take to rebuild everything? Basically, flatten it completely so it doesn't exist anymore and bring it back up. His answer, 90 minutes. All right? And that's a whole banking infrastructure, payments, database, web servers, all the tests run to ensure consistency of data in 90 minutes. Actually took 75, but it was a more cautious type, that guy. So yeah, when you've got that, then when you can demonstrate it and can demonstrate the value of that, then it actually becomes quite an easy sell. It's just finding somebody to sell it to, which is all well and good having, having the world's best #1 game. But if you can't find anyone to sell it to, it's not, is it? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Hi.
With the current trends of a lot of games going towards live service products,
Yep.
it's a lot of dev teams are effectively brute forcing DevOps. Like they're doing it, but like more with like a sledgehammer to put a nail in. Like, what should they be looking at to do it better in the future? Like, how do we get better at that process?
That's a really good question, and something that I've been thinking through. Just bear with me 1 second, I'll just grab a drink. Okay, so yeah, a really good question, and live service is an absolutely fantastic example of where DevOps will be a huge value win for companies, because sometimes the updates you're doing on a live service you're not updating the whole game, you're just updating one tiny little bit, and that's it. So how do your question was, how do you get teams to do it properly rather than get the sledgehammer to crack a nut? Yeah? Training. It's training, and it's understanding, it's having conversations like this, right? Do you understand what DevOps is? And a great first step to that is what I mentioned it earlier on, is get the Phoenix project, right? Any new starter that I had in my team at Bank and at Lloyds, that turn up and their welcome package would be a hoodie and a t-shirt and a mug and a copy of the Phoenix project. I'd give them 3 weeks, and after 3 weeks I'd ask them about the book. And then you're like, well, I haven't read it yet. I told you, you need to read it to understand what we're doing. And the light, once they've read it, you can see the light go on and understand. And then you can get into more deeper training. This is why, and get more specific. This is why we do automation. This is why we're in the cloud, etc., etc. And use the examples of the past. Use the examples of the past, near past. Star Wars, Lost Ark, and there's a whole load of others out there. Some games have actually died on their arse because they've not had any way of bringing extra capacity up. So some have managed it, like say, with Amazon. That one always really, really confused me. The people that own the infrastructure can't get it right. And it's like, it's really interesting if you're talking to AAA studios and trying to sell, you just go, all you need to sell it to them is, remember Lost Ark? We don't want that, do we? Okay, so that's kind of, it's an interesting one. It's one that I've gone through several times in different ways, and some of it is, you need it specific to, again, to your CTO, to your CEO. So at the end of the day, there's going to be an initial cost implication. It's not a zero cost to implement what you're doing, but then it goes like that and levels out. Okay. Okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll quickly grab another drink while you do that.
Hello.
Hi.
That's louder than I thought.
Hi.
Thanks for the talk.
No problem.
I was going to ask about kind of the AAA game space, cloud,
Yeah.
because I was thinking that AAA games have kind of a unique requirement when you compare them to like a fintech company.
Yeah.
They need, they don't necessarily need the database side or the CPU side, they need the graphics side,
Yeah.
and they need dev kits as well. Is it possible at the moment to, would you ever recommend a AAA games company to move all their infrastructure into Azure or something like that? Would they have the graphical capabilities on Azure to let them do the testing that they need to do?
That is actually a really, really good question, because it actually highlights which bits would be suitable for operating in the cloud and which bits wouldn't. I don't know if any of you have tried playing whatever Xbox calls their cloud service. It works 1 time out of 3, maybe, sometimes. It depends on the game, though, as well. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that side, maybe not. Maybe keep the actual graphics processing and what have you local. You know, we only have to look at what happened with. Got to that time of the evening where my brain's just gone, no, Phil, give up, go home. The cloud-based game services, I reckon Amazon's going to go the same way with Luna. They're just going to be like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I don't know if you've played any of the games on Netflix. Don't bother. Genuinely, don't bother. Having local processing, there's a reason why people like having their own consoles. You know, I've just bought a Steam Deck, fantastic piece of kit, love it to bits, all right? But that keeps all the processing local, and it's all the things like matchmaking and your bots and things like that that are out in the cloud. And that's what Elder Scrolls does. You have local processing. Everything else, get this, in AWS. Go figure. Bearing in mind who owns ZeniMax, who make Elder Scrolls. Okay, but the rest of that group of companies are starting to use Azure, right? And that's where it becomes sensible, right? Sensible to have your DevOps processes in place, your DevOps processing, building the cloud infrastructure. It's out there, but it's not directly impacting, because you can basically ring the earth. All the major cloud providers, be they the top 3, which are Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, plus your followers on, like Alibaba, etc., they all have points of presence all the way around the globe. Right? We're moving more and more into a global gaming society, where you might want to play your game with your mate that lives in Tokyo at the same time as playing against your mate that lives in Austin, right? Well, you don't all want to be connecting into the same server, because the latency for you will be like 0, but the latency for the guys in Austin and Tokyo will be like, I'm not going to bother. So you have multiple points of presence, so you all have a similar game experience. And it comes down to, the end of the day, what brings people back to playing a game is the game experience. And if people come back to play a game, they pay more money for it. If it's a subscription-based one, if it's a free-to-play one where you buy V-Bucks or whatever the in-game currency is, you need to keep people coming back. And so therefore you need that stable, which again was the major problem with Lost Ark. I know I keep coming back to that, but it's the one I can remember because it really, really annoyed me. You may spot a pattern about the style of gaming that I play. You know, Lost Ark, Diablo, Path of Exile. They're doing all right, apart from the announced today that Path of Exile 2 beta will be delayed. But anyway, I go off down a rabbit hole. Lost Ark, right? they should have planned way ahead. You can set up your monitoring. One thing it doesn't show up here, but would show in here. Here it is. Monitor, right? Big part of any DevOps process is monitoring what you've got. How do you know what you've got, and how do you know how it's working if you don't monitor it, right? And if Amazon Games had put any kind of DevOps process in, which is all built into AWS, yeah, they'd have known way before anybody messaged them to say, I can't log in, that they needed to spin up more instances to handle the number of players that they've got. Right. Now, does that answer your question? It's a long-winded way, and this is, believe me, I spent 14 years working in DevOps teams and building DevOps teams and building this kind of thing. And there's really, really long conversations. The interesting one to come to is, where did I put it? I can't remember where I put it. The fact that, you know, DevOps might be dead now and everybody's going to platform or SRE, which is, well, what I should say is like the logical step from DevOps is SRE. Platform's completely bloody different. Completely different. And I'm not going to go there because what time is it? 8 o'clock. We've got time for one more, maybe? Yeah. Chuck the mic. Yeah.
Okay, I've got two questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, I mean, DevOps helps with scaling, but how do you scale DevOps? How do you scale from 1 to 2 to 5 to 10 to 100, even 1,000-person teams? How does DevOps scale from, you know, just you yourself, and then maybe you and a friend, you and some more friends, and then, you know, you've got more than 8?
Right.
How does it scale?
That's a really, really good question, and every single DevOps team hits this same problem, right? I did touch on it very, very quickly and then moved on earlier, right? There's a really, really boring document that you might want to read at some point called the Agile Manifesto. It's 20 years old, but one important part of that says that the perfect team size is between 8 and 10 people, right? So what happens when you get to 12, which is basically what you're saying, and so on and so forth, right, is that you split off into 2 teams, right, okay? But that means you have to then double up on leads and scrum masters, producers, okay? At the end of the day, a producer in this situation, a producer is a scrum master and a project manager and a few other bits on top, okay? So when we're talking about a producer here, it's, say, producer, scrum master, interchangeable, okay? So you do that, and I've done that. The Atom Bank, we got the team up to 28, right? And 28 doesn't divide into 2 nicely, no, it doesn't. So we actually varied between 3 and 4 teams in each sprint. It also allows you, it's a great thing actually to grow to that size, because it allows you to do one other thing which most DevOps teams never manage, which is called self-organizing groups, right? If you think about how you work on a normal day-to-day within your studio, if you're using Kanban or whatever, you know, you're handed a ticket, here, go and create me 3 different types of trees, right? And you'd come back and go, done that, right? If you're in a self-organizing group, you know, somebody hands you that ticket and says, go and do it. If you're a self-organizing group, you get together and go, right, our target for the end of this sprint is that we will have 15 different types of trees, 3 different types of rocks, unless you Call of Duty, in which case you only need one. And then, we'll have all these assets done, right? And then as a group, you sit around in a big circle and you go, right, who's going to do this? I'll do that. Okay, that's assigned to you, off you go, right? But to do that, the concept of ultimate responsibility has to be accepted by everybody. You can't have self-organizing groups if somebody goes, that's not my problem, mate. Yeah? You have to go, actually, it is your problem. Get on and do it. Okay. So hopefully that's answered that. How do you scale? There is other things around it, but that, in a nutshell, is how you start scaling, you split out.
Cool. So the second question. So you've probably heard of code smells and kind of bad practices, anti-patterns. Are there DevOps smells, like things that are indicators of maybe bad organizational structure, bad processes, bad code design, bad team structure that make it more awkward, more difficult, or are likely to cause issues in a DevOps environment?
That is actually a fantastic question. Really, really good. And the first thing that you would do, yes, there are like anything, like is there anti-patterns within technical art? Of course there is. Is there, but within DevOps, it's pretty much the opposite of all I've put up here. People not taking responsibility, people not testing end to end. They're all pretty much people-based, not technology-based. Yeah. So yeah, there are. And the great thing that you can do, you can get very, very, very meta with, and I don't mean the Facebook people, I mean, or recursive with it, in that you can QA your DevOps team. So your DevOps processes become part of the DevOps process, which goes all around and around and around. And you do like you do with SNCC or whatever you use to check your code smells. You run something against your processes to go, actually, it's usually a human process, so it's a bit more fallible than anything like SNCC, whatever you want to call it. But it's definitely there. And in a couple of places I've worked, it's been, in one place, it was the death of the team because the actual source of the problems was my manager plus one. So you're fighting against, to put it in the vernacular, pissing in the wind. But if you've got, in other places, if you've got ultimate responsibility and acceptance, people are actually, let's fix it. And then it works forward. Okay, is that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. You better have got some. You better have got some good photos out of this because I'm not coming back.
Because it's such a long way, yeah? Come from Yorkshire. Any other questions? One more. Right, one more. And then...
Hiya. I'm a newbie as well. I'm learning about all this.
No problem.
But I just wondered, it sounds like DevOps is like a structure that whichever company can kind of work within, something like that. And systems that the company works in, and I think that's kind of what it's about. Yeah. I just wondered if AI could do that.
Phil said, I'm bound to get a question about AI, and I'm not answering it.
That was exactly what my exact words earlier, wasn't it? Okay. AI, fantastic. Really, really good. at what it does, but it's a tool. It's like any other tool. It's like TeamCity, it's like Unity's editor or anything like that. You cannot just go and do that. No doubt at some point somebody will develop a way of managing DevOps processes with AI. Yeah. And I do know that Azure DevOps does integrate a lot with Bing's AI. Okay. Is it the right thing to do? Personally, I don't think so, because it's where the whole point, if you like, of DevOps is you're bringing a human factor, your coders, your QAs and everything, into a technical process, which is your whole bringing it into operations, things like that. If you replace all of that with AI, you're going to end up with Skynet. And I don't think any of us want Skynet, apart from it's 4 years too late. So, yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that comes up time and time again. But I don't think anytime soon you're going to see it for any kind of DevOps pipeline process completely replaced by AI. Okay. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think that's all the questions. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Phil.
We've had the AI question. I can go now.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. No, so that's fantastic. Yeah, like I say, come all the way down from the north, from the frigid north, so thank you very much, Phil. Yeah, really appreciate it. Can we give Phil one more round of applause, please? So yeah, that's it for this evening. We've basically got Game Devs and Bevs downstairs for an hour and a half. Last orders is at 9:30. Then we're going to head down to the terrace, go down, continue the night. But otherwise, that's it. So thank you very much. Cheers, guys. I'll see you downstairs for drinks.